Welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts, MMA Creative Vice President and Democratic Operative Mike Kopp, and Syndicated talk show host Steve Gill. Welcome. Merry Christmas, gentlemen.
Thanks.
The lame duck session may be more productive than folks would have thought. Is this the kind of bipartisan support and agreements we're going to see now that the Republicans begin to take control?
Well, again, keep in mind the Democrats still had an overwhelming control of the House, overwhelming control of the Senate. There really wasn't a lot of bipartisanship here. You're going to see what happens in the new session when Republicans control the House. The Democrats have a smaller margin in the Senate, but the Democrats are still in charge. Whatever gets done is going to require some back and forth between the two parties.
I think the lesson here is that the president learned that he's got to work with both sides and he's got to make some compromises, or things are not going to happen. And I think it's going to be a lot more contentious when they get back together again in January.
Were we surprised at all with two Tennessee U.S. senators agreeing with the START program coming on board, Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker?
I don't think either of us are.
No,
we're watching where the money flows. In politics, follow the money. Oak Ridge just got a big chunk of dough as part of this deal.
You know, when they took away the earmarks that members of Congress could get for parts of the budget, now what you do is you negotiate behind the scenes with the White House to get what you want for a vote, and that's exactly what happened in this case.
Don't ask, don't tell. Been repealed now. Is this issue behind us, or is this going to continue to be a contentious issue?
I think it depends on how the military executes it, and my sense is that it's going to be fine. I don't think we're going to see any craziness going on out there in the trenches. I think a lot of people are responsible, and a lot of the military leaders want to do it the right way, but I think it's going to be how it's executed.
I think you're going to continue to see the loss of a lot of our combat troops, our combat effectiveness, not just because of this policy, but you've had General David Petraeus and others say, look, if you don't like this policy, get out. Well, the combat troops are the ones that most overwhelmingly oppose this, and they're the ones that are being deployed time and time and time again. They're the ones that are feeling the pressure of two wars at the same time. They're the ones that are going to feel the brunt of this new policy more than somebody sitting at a desk in the Pentagon who has another guy that's gay sitting at 3 desks over. It is a different situation in the combat arena. We didn't listen to those in the combat arena and reject this, and I think that's where you're going to see the differences.
But we are talking about the military where there's not a lot of debate. You simply follow orders, and I think the orders are going to be followed.
Yeah, there's not going to be chaos. You're not going to see any problems of it. Right. What you're going to see is lack of retention. You're going to see lack of recruiting, and I don't think that with all this push for the new don't ask, don't tell, repeal, gays in the military, that they're going to be setting up emergency recruiting stations in San Francisco and the East Village to take advantage of all the sudden influx of gays who can't wait to serve in combat. That's the fallacy. It's not going to happen.
Governor Bredesen goes out of office in 2 weeks. We'll talk about him this week and next week as we hear a look back from the governor. Give us a grade on Governor Bredesen. I'll give him a B, maybe a B minus as far as his administration goes. I think he accomplished a lot. There were a few glitches in the road. TennCare, a big issue, some issues with the THP and those kinds of things. But overall, I think he was the business guy we thought he was and attracted a lot of industry.
It's going to pain a lot of my Republican friends. I got to give him a B to a B plus, and I'm not grading him on the curve. I think you've had Tennessee shepherded through a very difficult period economically, both with 9/11 that had a huge hit on the national economy as well as here in Tennessee, and the continued problems that we've had economically here in Tennessee and beyond. And I think both because he has maintained a fiscal discipline and you've had a legislature that has maintained a fiscal discipline, we haven't gotten in trouble like we've seen other states where they've spent money they don't have and now they're paying a big price for it. So I'd have to give him a B to a B plus.
I'd give him an A, hands down. I think there's no doubt in my mind that he brought us out of some difficult times, but he also inherited a mess. And he's leaving the state in better shape than it was before.
As we look at his accomplishments, you really can point to the leadership that he brought. Let's not give him all the credit. The legislatures had to have agreement, too. But bringing Volkswagen here, bringing Bridgestone here, bringing Nissan here, bringing Hemlock here, those are huge accomplishments.
I think he's not been a real flashy guy. I mean, nobody thought he was as mayor. Nobody thought he was in business. He hasn't been kind of a flashy guy that's on the national networks all the time. And I think that because he's not been out front more on some key policy issues like the Obamacare issue, he's missed an opportunity to play a bigger role in shaping policy both here in Tennessee and outside the borders. I think the other missing piece for him has been politics. And again, that cuts both ways. Some people are going to say that's the great thing about him. He hadn't been a real politically partisan governor. Now, he's played hardball when he's had to. But I think, unfortunately, for the Democratic Party, he was not a guy who left the Democratic Party better off than when he came in 8 years ago. And I think the Democrats are going to pay a price for that for a while.
On the job front, he was smart enough to bring in some people and let them do their job that knew what they were doing in the economic development arena. And he was also able to coalesce a lot of economic development professionals around the state that felt alienated by previous administrations. So again, if the leadership, I give him an A+ on that.
Talk like the shortcomings. Everybody has them. TennCare was a big mess. He even talked about he wished he could have done more with it. Forced in order to save the budget. It was eating the budget alive to make massive cuts in TennCare.
That's always the toughest challenge for anybody that comes from business into politics. Is you're facing a limited budget. You're limited in what you can do to raise additional resources. Again, I give him an A on that. I think he took what resources we had, made the best of it, and kept the state moving.
I think he had a bit of an advantage. If Don Sundquist, or a Republican governor, had done the sort of cuts that we saw that he put into place, you'd have had the typical interest groups screaming and pitching a fit even bigger than they did with him in office. The challenge now is going to be, as we go ahead, that with Obamacare and the burdens that's going to place on the Tennessee budget in the years to come, can Governor Haslam and his team handle things as effectively? Will the media give them the same sort of pass they gave to Phil Bredesen in making the kind of cuts to make things work?
Steve Gill, Mike Kopp, appreciate your time and your insight. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.